Sometimes life goes a little off course. That's why you need a podcast host that can go a little off topic. This is the podcast that will give you straight talk about everything life throws at you. Welcome to another episode of Off Topic with Tom Powell. And here he is. This is Tom Powell.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing?
So far, so good.
You've got a busy day lined up, don't you?
Yeah, it's just like so much more than I thought it was going to be always. I always say yes to everything because I like doing stuff. And then I'm like, oh shit, I said yes to everything.
Well, if it's any consolation, I really appreciate you doing this. I only do this for about an hour. I only take about an hour of your time.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think this will be fun.
I didn't even know that you followed me. So I was like, oh shit, he's awesome. I would love that.
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. So where I would like this, I want to ask you a whole bunch of questions about what you're doing and how you got to where you're at and all of this stuff. But where I have to start, I'm a huge football fan. I'm sorry about your Bills.
I know.
I picked them to win, and it's like every year I'm like, they're gonna get there. I'm not a Bills fan, but I'm like, they're gonna get there, and then they just
fucking Chiefs, man.
You know what? I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing the Chiefs in there, like I was with the Patriots. But between you, me, and the listening audience, obviously, if it drives certain people nuts that the Chiefs are in there and they're going to have to see Taylor Swift in the booth, then go Chiefs.
I know the Chiefs they got our ass last year on the coin toss. This year, I think something that Josh Allen could do better is he doesn't ever call for fouls or flags. He just gets right back up. And something Mahomes is really good at is identifying penalties. He will flip out the second somebody touches them funny, they'll get the penalty. Josh doesn't do that. And I feel like he should. I think we should calm down just a little bit. He's like so ready to get to the next play. And I'm like, all right. Because oftentimes with the Chiefs, it's coming down to something like penalties that put them over. And so, coin tosses or these little other parts of the game.
I'm a Colts fan, even though I'm in the Chicagoland area. So when my Colts were out of it, I was actually rooting for the Lions. I've been wanting the Lions to succeed for quite some time. You know what? I got to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm sorry. Hang on.
Oh, sure. No problem.
Oh, everybody and their brother is going to be trying to get a hold of me.
Oh, of course, because you're doing something. I was watching the Lions play last night, and they were playing such good football. And then it just like, again, I don't know what it is, if it's like self-sabotage or what happens, but to lose after having that big a lead,
they'll be back there. Your Bills will be back there. Although I got to say, I am, as much as I love cold weather and growing up and living in Chicagoland and thinking that football should be played outdoors, they need to put a roof on that new stadium. That is nuts.
The fans went nuts. The fact that we're not doing a dome is crazy. And they're like, well, because the weight of the snow, it would be really a problem anyway. And I'm like, no, I get that. And the fans like the snow. It's like part of the Bills experience. But man, the weather is different now. And I think we should have a dome on it too. I think
it's very cold. I mean, that's one of the things that Indianapolis did was they put the retractable roof on so they can open it up. But but anyway,
at least close it for the snow. But yeah,
exactly. When it's snowing, close it so that you don't have to have somebody waist deep. You open it back up for the game, and if it snows during the game, aces. But
I feel you.
I'm assuming you weren't part of the snow shoveling mafia going down there.
No, I wasn't. I thought about it, honestly. But then I was like, no, I'm too old for this kind of stuff now. But I was at the game that was at the last game that they lost. And it was really fun. Something I thought was interesting about it is Jason Kelce wanted to take his shirt off so bad because he was in Bill's Mafia's house. We don't really take our shirt off. We start like this. Like, this is the common outfit, you know what I mean? But like, picture an Allen jersey. And then in Buffalo, you have two uniforms. One is your lightweight coveralls and the other are your like insulated ones. So a lot of people will just wear the jersey and the insulated coveralls and a hat, right? That's the look. I was like, nobody takes their friggin' shirt off in Buffalo. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, not even in Chicago. I mean, you got a few lunatics that do it in the cold weather, but
but it's not like a common Bills thing. I was like, that's not a Bills thing. He should have come in his like Carhartt insulated work coveralls and snow boots. That's a Bills thing. And then a t-shirt.
Right, yeah, exactly. So the first question I have to ask about what you do is how, and you've seen what I do.
Hmm.
How do you remain so positive?
Um, I've always been like this, honestly. Like I've been a like perpetually optimistic person my whole life. And I don't know if that's like has to do with like my parents are very magical and my grandma was very magical and they were like theater people. So like everything can be a good thing. And I'm the oldest of three. And so I just think I've been always in this place where it was my job to like cheerlead and like make people feel safe, make them feel comfortable. I also worked in hospitality for a really long time, and you learn a ton about how to make the guests feel safe and comfortable, even if the kitchen is on fire. And I think it just like is in me to be that way. Um, so it's not something I have to like try to do. I didn't intend to start out as like the nice side of the news or a positive news creator. I just thought the way that people were doing it was such a bummer and it was so hard but it's such important information that I was like, let me just tell them what happened. Let me just see if I can like break through some of the like casting that there is in news to be like very serious and very like tough on things and just kind of like meet people where they're at and talk to them the way I talk to my friends or my parents or anybody else about stuff. So that's how it came about. It's just been
Yeah,
that
it's
way.
in today's day and age, people, okay, so obviously people get their news completely differently than they did when I was. How old are you?
Sure.
How old are you?
41.
41. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're about 10 years younger than I am. I'm going to be 52 in May.
Oh, nice.
And when I was growing up, in order to learn about the news, you had to wait until your nightly news came on, or you got a newspaper. There was no internet or any of that stuff. And in today's day and age, people get their news from all different sources. And it seems like, and this is not like I don't consciously talk about the news in a negative manner. It leads me that way because
Sure.
it's like there's so much negativity when it comes to the news. And to see someone that just it's kind of like the old school Walter Cronkite. I'm just going to tell you what's going on. I'm not going to give you my opinion on it. I'm not going to give you what I feel about it. I'm just going to report the news. That is a rarity in today's age. And that's why I wanted to ask about the positivity, because so many people report the news and their personal feelings then come out in that, which then leads to somebody going, oh, you're being negative. You're not just reporting the news. You're giving your own spin on the news. And I find it difficult to just go, all right, hey guys, here's a bill that happened that they put together. Here's how the vote went, and then not give my personal opinion on it. So, I mean, kudos to you for not throwing that personal stuff in there.
I talk a ton of shit offline though, Tom. Like I talk a ton of shit about the bills and about people and about the politicians to my mom, to my wife, to my friends. So I try to get, maybe that's what it is. I like get it all out and then I'm like, okay, what do I need to tell the people so that they can have the understanding I have of the material and then go talk shit to their friends about it. That's always kind of been the goal, is like to get you enough information that you're conversational, but that you can take it, apply, your opinion to it, and then be the person who gets to deliver it to your community. And that's really the goal of it.
And that's kind of what I need to work on a lot, is let you form your opinion on what you see with the news, instead of you just hearing the news, getting my opinion and going, yeah, you know what, he's right. You shouldn't hear my opinion, but I'm opinionated. I'm loudmouth. I'm half Sicilian, half hillbilly, and I don't know how to keep my mouth shut. So basically what you're saying is what people don't see about V is you walking through the house going, and another fucking thing.
Well, what's funny is when I'll get a lot of DMs though of people who will be like, can you just tell me what to think? I think that you do need both. I think sometimes I can present a story in a way that like helps people find their own opinion of it. Even just the stories I pick have bias, right? Like, why did I pick that one? It's because it mattered to me over something else. You know what I mean? So there's bias in everything. Bias doesn't mean bad. But I think folks then look for other people to kind of like help them fill in where they are and where they're not. It's why we see people want celebrities to weigh in on the news. It's because they like trust that celebrity, but now they want their like hot take on something political, and not always are they good at doing the second part.
Yeah, it's something that like around in this area in Chicagoland, people used to just crucify Michael Jordan for. They say you have the biggest bully pulpit on the planet. You're the biggest athlete, biggest star, and you won't touch. And he's like, because I remember, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, when he was asked about it, he goes, because Republicans watch basketball too.
It's and I agree with that. I think people right now, there seems to be like a desire for everyone to be an expert on everything, and I don't know, and I won't do that. So there's some stuff that I love to watch other people talk about because I don't know about that and I'm excited to learn from them. I don't think I should take something I learned from somebody else and then come back to you and pretend like I knew it straight off. And there's a lot of that on TikTok where like you can tell somebody maybe wants to be seen as an authority on something, or they think that doing the news is easy, or they want to be a pundit in some way, or they just want to feel heard in some way. And they'll be speaking for a community or defending a community that didn't necessarily ask for that sometimes. And we see folks get into trouble with that. And it's the same with celebrities. Like, I don't need to know what Britney Spears' hot take on Palestine is, right? I don't expect that Britney Spears necessarily maybe even knows what's going on. And maybe she should, but why should she? And what should she do with it? And if everyone is directing their attention to one issue that you personally feel is the biggest issue, then it sort of gets very muddy. People get tired of it very quickly, and that's the danger of it. I've been an advocate for abortion access and LGBTQ rights since I was 17 years old. And it's something that like has its peaks and valleys. Sometimes talking about abortion is all everybody wants to hear. And sometimes they're like, oh my God, shut up about it. I can't handle it anymore. When celebrities get involved, I think it really complicates the cause. It can help sometimes, but more often than not, it complicates the cause because all the baggage and all the drama of that celebrity is now wrapped up into your cause about like protecting your little abortion clinic in your town or whatever the thing is that you're excited about. And then it starts to seem like, oh, this is just a talking point, or when a politician gets too involved in it with these talking points, it sort of dilutes the message a lot of times. So I don't agree that everyone should be an expert on everything. And I don't think we should look to celebrities for like how we should feel about something or demand that they use their platform to amplify this, that, the other. Because if they don't do it out of the like genuine interest, then there's not going to be a lot of follow through on the other side. And it can make it feel like busy work for them. Like, okay, I put up my little, save reproductive rights access and now I'm done. The ask from them maybe is financial. Maybe it's convincing them to donate to your cause as opposed to using their platform to talk about their cause and apply to their foundations and things. And I've done all that kind of stuff too. There's a lot of ways to get somebody involved in activism and to get them to care about your thing. Not all of them involve demanding that you get to commandeer their platform or whatever we want to call it to bark about your thing. And I think that can be tricky.
It's one of the things that I sort of struggle with from time to time because first of all, I didn't think I would ever have 1,000 followers on any of these platforms. So the fact that I'm sitting at 1.4 million is just absolutely mind-numbing. Like I'm a retired landscaper. Why are you guys following me? And what I get the most of is, well, you present what you feel and what you think with, we think, genuine feeling, and you're real. Okay, fine, great, that's awesome. I do try to be as real as humanly possible. But what I struggle with are the two things that you kind of touched on is, one, talking about things that I don't know about. One of the things I never do is I never do content on climate control because I just don't know enough about it. Mm-hmm. I simply know nothing about it. And I haven't taken the time to do any reading or educate myself on it. So anything that I do would simply be guessing. Mm-hmm. At this point in time. Yes, I can tell. I live in Chicagoland. It gets colder every winter. Minus 30 is becoming the new norm every winter. And then, 105 is becoming the new norm every summer. But beyond that, I don't know a lot about it. And the second thing that I struggle with is, who am I to talk about issues that affect the LGBTQ plus community, the Black community, the Hispanic community, the immigrant community? Mm-hmm. I'm a straight, white, middle-aged, middle American male. I have had zero problems in my life. Mm-hmm. Nobody has tried to oppress me. Nobody has tried to take my rights away from me. No, cops don't want to pull their gun when they see me. People don't cross the street when they see me walking down. Nobody gives a shit who I'm married to. And so when I talk about things, people go, well, shouldn't you be talking about it? I don't know if I should be or not. I'm just giving you my opinion on these various subjects. I know that there are things that have begun to creep into my personal life. I have a granddaughter that's non-binary, that identifies as non-binary. I have a daughter who's bisexual. And so obviously getting married and having 3 daughters and seeing what, like, I talk to my wife all the time about, I had no idea what you guys go through, not only
Yeah.
in the workplace, but like there isn't a doctor that will listen to her when
Yeah.
she says, I have this pain, I have this. They're like, oh, you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just take this and you'll be fine. And it's like, she goes, well, when you go to the doctor, what happens? I go, I tell him this, that, and this hurts, and I'd like this, and this, and he prescribes it to me, and I'm out the door. And she's like, yeah,
Right.
that doesn't happen for us.
No, I think
And
some
so
of
then I go
the,
talk about it, and they go, well, you're not a woman, you shouldn't talk about it. Or I talk about something that happened in the gay community. You're not somebody that's gay, you shouldn't talk about it. I'm like, okay, so I should talk about what? Mayonnaise and potato salad? I mean,
right. Well, it's and that's what it comes back to, right? Is the demand for everyone to be an expert on everything and talk about everything, but also not speak over the voices of the people who have lived experience. But then also you're talking about too many things, you're spreading yourself too thin, you're just an activist for activist's sake. So then it becomes really tricky. So what I like to try to remind myself, because that can put a lot of like just pressure on you mentally, also as a creator, to feel like, well, I don't want this person to feel out. Well, I do care about people. It's that rugged American individualism that I think is creeping into the idea that everyone has to be everything. Sometimes people just are who they are, and they've built a community based on that moment in their life. Um, so if we look at like if you look at Elise Myers, right? Elise Myers is like a very big creator on TikTok. She's very nice. Her whole thing is being positive, telling goofy stories. Should Elise Myers be an expert on climate change? No, and her audience is coming to her to be given a moment of levity, a moment of funniness, a goofy story. The next scroll they get is me. Now they're going to stop and they're going to learn a little something. We learn to expect the exchange from certain creators to be certain things, and it can't be everything from everyone all the time. Having Elise Myers start talking about what's going on in Davos, her audience would be like, what?
yeah,
I'm just here because I was having a rough time. I'm on the toilet for 5 seconds and I want to hear you tell a story about how you ordered 100 tacos, right? Like that's what I want from Elise Myers. I don't want Elise Myers to be necessarily political, or Michael Jordan, whoever the case may be. And then when I see my favorite political creators, I want them to give it to me straight so that I can be conversational. At least this is how I believe it. And I can take it back to my community, what matters to me. We understand as creators what our audience is looking for, and it can be disappointing to other folks if our audience isn't looking for the thing that they want them to be looking for, right? Like there are folks who are in the queer community who are like, you don't talk nearly enough about trans issues. I'm like, I don't talk enough about anything because my responsibility is sort of everything. I get 6 stories a night. Nobody gets more than 1 story at a time, no matter what the case is, with the rare exception of something that I'm directly involved in. So like we did a piece on ICWA and the importance of the Indian Child Welfare Act. And at the same time, I was working with Indigenous women on this Bring Chantel Home case. And I was on her podcast and we were talking about building out Native storytelling, amplifying Native storytelling. So that story, Bring Chantel Home, got 3 pieces, but it's because I was directly doing it every day. So I had more to say about it than when I was researching about it. Sometimes I'll talk about a trans bill that's going on and it'll be vague. It'll be like, right now there's legislation to eliminate trans girls from sports. Well, I'm not going to necessarily go back every single day and say, and in Florida, it advanced 1 step today. In Iowa, it was shot down 1 step today. I'm going to tell you, go to Aaron Reed. Aaron Reed does that every day, all day, right? There's people who niche down in the news also. And I like to think of us as a collective on TikTok, but it can be difficult to hold your space and know that like you are the expert on your space, you are the expert on your audience, and you have to give the people, the majority of the people, what they're coming for, and stay true to that mission and not get sort of like washed into being bullied into talking about one thing or the other, or over focusing on one thing or the other. People want me to talk more about Trump, and I don't talk about Trump because I just don't find him interesting. And I think every other person is talking about him. I assume by 7 p.m. when I do the news, you've heard all about him. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll throw in
right.
1 or 2 things if it was big, like when he had to pay $83 million or whatever, but I can't do it every day because you're getting that already. I don't assume that I'm special. I don't assume that I'm the only person you're hearing things from. And so I try to be a good TikTok community member also, and I watch a ton of content. That way by 7 p.m., I know kind of about what my community may have seen, what the issues are, what people are excited about, and I can pick stories that help them dig more deeply into their curiosities about those things or introduce them to something new. But I try to be responsible with not overloading people with expectation.
some of the messages I get about why didn't you cover this and why didn't you cover that, I feel like are trying to draw me in to kind of put me in a corner. Like, okay, so one of the messages I get the most right now are about the Israeli Gaza conflict.
Mhm.
And I haven't done a single video expressing my opinion on it. And people send me messages all the time. Why you have such a big platform? You have such a. It doesn't matter that I have a big platform. And I've told people off app, and I'll tell you now, and the podcast audience will hear it. You want to know whose side I'm on? I'll tell you whose side I'm on. The people side. I
Mhm.
think that the people of Gaza are suffering under a dictator-like regime, and I think that the people of Israel are suffering under an authoritarian type regime, and I don't think that the people deserve the shit that they're caught in between. I
Mhm.
think that if you go and you talk to the people, you're going to find most people are just like, can I just live my life and let them live their lives? But it's the powers that be that they always want you to have an opinion about. And it's like, okay, I'll give you my opinion. Netanyahu and Hamas, they both suck,
Mhm.
and they're using their people as pawns.
Mhm.
I think that Israel has been oppressive towards the Palestinians for decades, and that
Mhm.
should stop. And I think that the Palestinians have been particularly harsh towards the Israelis, and that should stop. But what do you want from me? You want me to make a video saying Israel's wrong or God or the Palestinians are wrong? The leadership of both countries are wrong, and the only people that are suffering are the people in the everyday, the market, the streets, the schools,
Mhm.
the towns. It's not the leadership that's suffering when stuff like this happens. It's people like you and I that suffer. And
Mhm.
so me making 10,000 videos about it, what is it going to do? It's going to piss off. If I say these people are in the wrong, it's going to piss off half of these people. If I say these people are in the wrong, it's going to piss off half of these people. And nobody's going to hear the fact that what I really want is just for the people to be left alone.
Mhm.
Let the leaders go to some desert somewhere and duel amongst themselves.
I think some
Everybody
of it,
go back to back with a 6 shooter like it's the Wild West and take
right,
six
figure it
paces
out.
a turn.
Some of that again goes back to the idea of this rugged individualism. Some of the activism I see as it relates to this, I think is very good and super educational, and people are learning a ton about what's going on in the Middle East. And some of it is busy work that we in the activist community would recognize as detrimental to the overall cause. I'll bring up the watermelon filter, where people were sort of moving their nose around to make the watermelon move, and they were going to raise money for Palestine. So if you're looking at it, it's a wonderful idea. It took up a ton of room. People started scrolling on the watermelon all the time because they got sick of seeing that same video over and over. It created busy work for people who could have been asked to do something else. And the most amount of money, the maximum, I was like, what's the maximum that a game can raise? And it's $12,000. So I saw probably 12,000 of these things. So at some point, that activity maxed out, and that money is not able, and that creator has to pay taxes on the money that they raised because it's income. And it's very difficult to get money into Gaza right now because they had shut down, like, even the Palestinian children's relief fund had said, we literally can't ethically take money from you right now. Right now, we're talking about recovery on the other side of this. What will it look like at the end in some ways? So to me, stuff like that gets tricky because then I'll get a million DMs of people being like, why aren't you doing the watermelon game? I'm like, because I have researched it a little bit further and found that this is not actually the best way to amplify my time. And taking up that much of the FYP is going to exhaust people to the cause. They're going to think it's silly. They're not going to understand the bigger piece of what's going on here. The second side of that is we oftentimes will say that America is an imperialist colonial power who doesn't belong sticking their nose in other countries. They shouldn't have military bases other places. They're not the police of the world. Our opinion on the rest of the world shouldn't matter. We should be leaving everyone alone to fight their own battles and deal with their own shit. And at the same time, we're holding Joe Biden responsible for everything that Netanyahu or Hamas is doing. So I think that becomes tricky too. And so then I'm looking at the broader side of the politics to say, okay, what is Joe Biden's actual power in this position? What is the paperwork that we have with Israel look like right now? How could we get out of or into more or less of anything that's going on? Because politics and diplomacy and democracy is like a huge ship. To turn it, it takes a lot of people to decide we're going to turn it around, and then it takes a very long time to maneuver that ship around. So I'm trying to look at things like, what does our paperwork with Israel look like? Why are we sending the things we're sending? How is this affecting overall geopolitics when it comes to like exhausting resources? Who's benefiting from this? Iran. Now we're sort of zooming out of the picture more and more and more to see, is Iran just trying to goad us into another war so that Russia can take Ukraine, so that Iran can take Iraq? Like, what are we looking at?
Well,
Is this
certainly,
punishment for the American response to the killing of Masa Amini? Like, there's so much shit that goes on between Iran and their like absolute displeasure with being embarrassed on the world stage and the Masa Amini thing. They are seeking revenge against American protesters for making that such a big cause. So like, that's the thing, is like, we could do this all day and I've got 90 seconds, and it's irresponsible for me to try and put into 90 seconds something that is this big, which is why a lot of times the stuff that you see on TikTok, we should not expect that's all that creators are doing. I have a whole job where I do this in the regular, right, and in the real world. That's not just the TikToks that we put out to give people some conversational info and entertainment.
that's something I don't have to worry about, a real job.
Yeah. No, the real job is fun and cool, except this is when my like super American shows up. So I come from like a regular, normal American family. My family came from Albania and Ireland. The Albanian family is extremely patriotic because when you come out of communism and after Italian fascism and all that, like you do believe in the American dream. And so I was raised super, super like America. Yes, this is the good place. And that only really comes out when I have to be the American delegate at something. So like I had to go to the UN for a digital diplomacy discussion, and it was like all the different countries. And I was like the one from the US to talk about TikTok and like TikTok's impact on global youth and freedom of speech. And should TikTok exist? Should it not exist? I, of course, think it should exist. I was like defending the position that like, children have First Amendment rights, and that is the right to expression, is the right to be connected to the billions of people across the globe that are on this platform. And I'm going on and on. And the guy from England is like, this is why we shouldn't invite the United States. You guys have the worst opinions on everything. Bah, 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 bah. And just starts like barking at me in my like teal suit with my pink pocket square and all the hair and everything. I just like closed my laptop. I was like, you invited me. And also good fucking luck talking about the internet, which we invented without the United States, right? So then so that's what I do when I'm not making TikToks. It's a very different world than like the representative from Amsterdam is like, yeah, tell Britain, tell him shut up. And I'm like fighting literally like schoolyard, like probably irresponsibly. I'm like, I'm never getting invited back to this thing again. And of course I always do, but it's like, that's the kind of stuff I do when I'm not making TikToks.
I have somewhat of the same experience as far as a family goes. My grandfather on my mother's side was born in Sicily. He immigrated here when he was like 8 or 9, and Italian was never spoken in his house. He was like, we live in America. You're going to speak English. I'm raising American kids.
Yep.
And so he wasn't rah, everybody waved the flag, but he definitely gave a shit about the fact that he left the situation to come to a better situation and was able to make a life for himself. And he wanted his kids to, for lack of a better way of putting it, assimilate. So my mother was first generation born in America. And it was, you're speaking English, you're not going to speak Italian, you're going to do this, you're going to do it this way, you're going to do it that way. And I get people that like, I asked you right off the bat, I'm like, well, how do you stay so calm? And people will say, when you're, as you can see, what I do is a lot of replying to comments.
Mm-hmm.
I like to put stats out there, but I also like to mess with people and kind of give my opinion when people are being, in my opinion, somewhat moronic. And they're like, how do you stay calm when you deal with all these people? And I'm like, because you don't see the 4 minutes before I made the video, me going, this motherfucker, going to my wife and going, look at this shit. And then I bring it back in, and then I put my phone on my stand and I go, all right, record. And now you're going to get the calm down. I snap just like everybody else.
Sure.
It's not, I mean,
I just snap at the UN for people who criticize.
Yeah, I don't have the opportunity to snap at the UN. Okay.
But it's a lot of that. And then folks will get, they'll be like, oh, you got invited to the White House, so you're a shill for the Democrats. I'm like, let me tell you about the times I've been invited to the White House. The first time we got invited to the White House, it was for the signing of the Inflation Reduction Act the Infrastructure Act. And it was me and AB Burns. I am Legally Hype and like Midas Touch and a bunch of other influencers. You have no idea how important it is that the White House is looking at TikTok and Instagram creators and YouTubers and saying, we're going to give them the same respect and time that we give legacy media. That is unheard of. That is like a return to, I know Joe wants to be FDR so bad, but it's like a return to the FDR, to the old time of the president, where the White House was open, where the union leaders did come in and meet in the Oval with him, where he did sit down, and he does all that stuff. And I think that's cool. I think that's better than not. But the first time we went, we knew he was going to come in the room, and I was practicing with AB about what we were going to say for the question, because AB's brother is unlawfully and unconstitutionally incarcerated in California. He was accused of a crime that he did not commit, that someone else who did commit the crime already served the time for, and her brother is still in jail. And this was part of the war on gangs that California doing when Kamala was top cop out there. So to me, I have a chance to be in front of the president of the United States, potentially her as well. I have great respect for the office and for what they can do. I also have this friend that I care a lot about. We have this cause that her brother represents, one man in thousands that this happened to, right? So I'm going in there to hear about the jobs and infrastructure and trains and the bridges they're going to build. But if he comes in and says, is there a question? AB, we're asking him about California prisons and what happened and to give your brother clemency, basically. And she's like, oh my God, I can't. I was like, but you must. When are we going to see the president again? Like, this is what we have to do. It will stick in his head because it will be so shocking that we were there with a legitimate grievance, right? So he comes in. Everybody's all smiles and he's like, what do you think about the act? And people are like, oh my God, I love trains. I'm excited for whatever. Da, da, da. And he's like, do you have any questions? And we're like, yes, we do. And she's like, my brother was unlawfully incarcerated, goes through the whole story quick. And he's like, first he was shocked and then he was really listening. And she's like, and I want to know what you're going to do to right the wrongs that were done in this country for mass incarceration of Black men who were simply existing, and by existing, rounded up and told they were in gangs and have been in prison since. And he was like, have you applied to the governor? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, that's what clemency is for. And she's like, I don't want just special treatment for my brother. I want this corrected. I went to law school to try and get this corrected. And she had all her stats there. It took maybe 3 minutes, but Biden does click in pretty quick. He's an excellent politician. You could say what you want about him as a person or whatever, but he knows the mechanisms and you can watch them work. He like unlocks how this would get undone. And he's like, give me your name. Give me your name. Give me his name. Right? So that's what I do when I'm at the White House. I'm not there to kiss Joe Biden's ass or any other time. Another time we went in there, we were talking about the TikTok ban and how it would be, detrimental to our overall First Amendment rights, and how I was really displeased with him saying he would back a TikTok ban, and that I think he needs to not kowtow to the China hawk so bad on the other side. They're never going to love you. That's the kind of stuff we get to say when we're at the White House. So, yeah, long story to say, a lot of folks don't know what TikTokers do when they're not making their cute little videos. Mine are oftentimes annoying Joe Biden for change we need in this country, or fighting with the UN, or screaming at my wife that I cannot believe my comments, right? I'm so disappointed in this or that or the other. Can you believe what this guy did? Yeah.
But they don't, and not to go negative, but they don't see that, right? What they see is they see a member of the LGBTQ plus community. They see that you have a wife. They see that you are compassionate towards other people. They see that you give a shit about bodily autonomy, and they see that you went to the White House. So therefore, you have to be working for Joe Biden.
Oh, I'm sure.
People think I'm getting paid directly from the DNC. And I'm like, if I was getting paid directly from the DNC, I'd already have a fucking ticket for the convention, which is in my backyard this year. And I can't get in.
The DNC thing is so funny to me when people are like, you're working for the DNC or you're working for Joe Biden or whatever. If I was, you would have to disclose that. And anytime I've done any kind of work, like I did work with Parents Together, which was about the child tax credit. That's like a PAC that's like advocating for child tax credit, made a video, put ad on it, made it very clear that's who I was working with. Same thing for like Tobacco Free America, everyday gun violence prevention, all those kinds of things. Those are like special interest groups. Make a TikTok for them. It's something I would have talked about anyway. That is how I fund the work that I do, but I get to pick what I want to say. The DNC cannot use influencers to lobby or advocate. It's like the laws are not that way. So you can't, like, the DNC can't pay influencers to say, don't vote for President Trump, do vote for Joe Biden. Like, the language and the laws that surround the way that ads and stuff like that is made is tricky, and not to their benefit. The way that they know how even to advertise and do things is the old way. It's door knockers, robocalls, call banking, all the stuff that historically has been done to win presidential elections. That's where you're going to see the DNC show up and spend their money. Conventions, celebrity endorsements, even sometimes, events, galas, dinners. That's the stuff they like to go to, and that's the stuff that they know how to do. And that's just what the machine is. The machine turns out a convention every year that does 250 special interest events. That's what they work on. They don't give a shit about an influencer on TikTok because they can't actually get me legally to say the things and do the things that they would want to do. So that I think is funny, because Palette Management is my management company. Palette has a couple political TikTokers. They're excellent at TikTok. Couple political TikTokers, couple musicians, couple sports people, couple comedians. Like, they've got all different kind of people, like any agency does. But they also have a division from one of the people who works at Palette used to work in DC. And so she does consulting. So the DNC paid her, a Palette like person, to consult on building a social media strategy for the DNC, for their channel on TikTok, the DNC's channel, DCCC. Had nothing to do with any of us, but because we're all at the same agency, people were like, you're a shell for the Democrats. Palette Management paid you $200,000. I'm like, I fucking promise you they did not. They paid Palette, who is a digital marketing agency, a consultant there to help the DNC start their Instagram and TikTok channel. But that has nothing to do with me or any of the other. Chrissy Chalpecca is at Palette, and she's like the Gen Z bimbo. I like, is she an op? I don't know. She'd be a good one. If I was going to pick one, I would pick Chrissy. But stuff like that, I think, is, I wish that people knew more about how it worked, because I think there'd be a lot less animosity from folks if they knew how different things worked. Because a lot of times the hate comments I get are from people who are either trying to grow their platform, have decided I don't deserve mine and they do, or whatever the case may be. And so then there must be a reason, and it can't be because I'm likable, talented, and intelligent, because they don't see me that way. So it must be that I'm an op. And so you have to kind of like, I guess if I could do anything in my life, I would love to teach like a creator psychology class to folks, because this stuff can hurt you so badly as a new creator. It can make you like really sad and really like self-conscious and paranoid and stressed. And so many times it's just a projection from someone else who doesn't see you the way that your audience sees you. And so they want to destroy you.
I see it. I see that all the time. And I've decided to kind of like lean into that skid a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, I get Clinton cash every month, and every quarter I get my Soros bucks. And if that's what you guys want to think, then go ahead. If you think the DNC is sending checks to a 51-year-old retired landscaper in a Grateful Dead shirt in the Chicago suburbs to do TikToks, then fucking run with it, champ. Roll with it.
You should get in on that money, though, guys. If you think it's such a good check, then like you should try to. I don't know. I actually
I wish they were sending me a damn check.
I worry sometimes about, because Democrats are so much more likely to criticize our own party. And I have a lot of things to say and have said about the way that Nancy Pelosi leads and bullies, and that she should retire. And that I don't feel the need this year to advocate for anyone to elect Joe Biden. I think if you want to, you will. This is a rematch between Trump and Joe Biden. People have already made their mind up. There's nothing I'm going to say that's going to convince you. It's not like anybody's new to this fight where we have to figure people out. I am in what I'm calling my down ballot era, because I think that folks are losing faith in politics and democracy and the ability for civil change. And we can't. We are actually in a better time in America now than we've ever been before, right? Like, we didn't even have gay marriage until 2015. We do have it now. Are we at risk of losing it? Yes, then we should fight for it. But we used to not have it. When my parents went to school, it was segregation. Like, We don't have that. Do we have problems with systemic racial injustice? Yes, but we don't have segregation to the level that we did pre-1965. That's something we won through politics and civics. And so I hope that people stop feeling like everything is about the presidential election and understand, like, getting involved in your school board, knowing when your local elections are, knowing who's on your down ballot, what our state representatives are doing in the state house and senate, and how those things, those votes can protect you from the Supreme Court, can protect you from a bad president, is what I'm going to be working on this year, because I agree that I'm tired of Joe and Trump. Everybody is. I don't think Joe Biden is a bad president. I actually think he's a very good president. But I don't know that I can get anybody excited about him. I'm not excited about him, but I am excited to go and research my local sheriff I'll vote for. And yeah, I'll throw a vote for Joe up at the end because it's there. I'm in the booth. I might as well. But I want people to know more about what's affecting their daily life so that we can rebuild faith and trust in these institutions. And remember that there's a place for us in them. It doesn't just have to be you voting for someone else to do what you want. You could run for office and do what you want.
So you talked about fighting for things like, gay marriage and ending the segregation and things like. When those victories happen. So my last episode I talked with a woman named Jessica Piper, who ran for.
Oh, I love Jessica down in Missouri.
Yeah, so her and I are mutuals, and we talk offline and stuff like that. And we did her. She was on my last episode. We talked about Missouri politics, and when she lost, I said, "Are you going to go back to teaching?" And she's like, "Oh, I mentioned abortion on the campaign trail in Missouri. I'm never going to be a teacher again." So when those victories happen, there come a certain price to pay with it. So have you seen in what you do, have you seen the violent backlash? Have you been threatened? Have people gone, yeah, you have? Because I've had people tell me they were going to leave a bomb on my porch. I've had people tell me they were going to abort my children with their shotgun. I've had people tell me they were going to cut me up and throw me in the river. I had somebody tell me that they left a bomb on my porch and asked for my daughter to go get it and called it by name in the comment. Tell Maggie to go get it. And it's like, and people go, like, aren't you scared? Don't you? I'm like, no, because usually if somebody's going to talk about it, they're not the kind of person that's going to do it. If somebody was going to leave a bomb, they were just going to do it. So I don't get scared about it. And I'm not going to back down from these folks. But, once again, I'm not somebody that they're targeting. They target people that are other, that are different from them. Sure. And I'm just wondering how much of an impact that's had on you and your wife.
So I am lucky that because I don't show a ton of opinion, or I don't, and I think it's mostly I don't attack people, so then they don't attack me. I haven't had any direct in-person scary things happen, and I hope that I don't. I've been on panels with Taylor Lorenz, the journalist, where there were people in the audience who were there to film her and make a problem for her, and she's had to have security in the room at VidCon, which is something you have to buy a fairly expensive ticket to even attend. So I have seen it worse for journalists. Back in October, there was a video that I had put out on Good News Only where I said, take a break, make sure that you're not just watching a ton of murder footage, because at that time we were watching just all October 7th footage. Take a break, make sure you're breathing, this is really hard stuff, and if it's too much, whatever. That got turned into me saying turn your back on Palestinians, which I never did. And that was the scariest it ever got, because people were like, I hope you get sexually assaulted, I hope you get killed, I'm going to find your wife at her show, because she was on tour at that time. And some of it was coming from the left. And that was actually scarier to me than when I get threats from the right. Because from the right, it's a lot of people who just don't have anywhere else to dump their feelings. And they're in their house and they're scared and they're whatever. And they're I'm going to do whatever. And I'm okay, I'm really sorry you feel that way. And I wish you well. Right. And that's usually enough for them. With the left, it was you make me embarrassed to be a non-binary person. You're not welcome in the gay community. It was such an incredible character attack over something that I did not even say that became really wild. That is the most dehumanized I've ever been, was that week or so where it was just getting totally attacked for something I didn't say in context I didn't use. That was really, really scary. I think that was probably the most scared I've ever been because it was so dehumanizing. Sometimes attacks from the right are like, I'm going to kill you if I ever see you. And I'm like, okay, well, we're probably never going to see me. So that's okay.
Right.
But these ones were like so deep cut, personal, from a deeply emotional, very fragile, very scary place that I was actually more worried about those. Since gotten better, been able to, I respond to my DMs and my comments. So was able to kind of like meet people in the middle and de-escalate a lot of it. But that really like scared, that was the first time I was scared to go outside because I get recognized a ton and it's usually fairly positive. And I was like walking around like Wegmans severely paranoid, or I had to MC a huge event and I was so scared that people were going to like throw tomatoes at me. I don't know what it was. I was just deeply paranoid. And that's probably the most scared I've ever been.
It can, I get it from both sides, and it can mess with your head. I mean, obviously, I get the same thing from the right, and it's usually, you should kill yourself. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to do this, but it's usually a one and gone, and then it goes. Where I get the most grief consistently is from the left, and it's from people who like, I'm a capitalist. I'm in favor of heavily regulated capitalism, but I'm a capitalist.
Sure.
And the people who are self-proclaimed communists, that I maybe that 17 to 24 age range on the left, they come after me in just waves, and it'll be a week and a half, 2 weeks at a time. And you're a bootlicker. We're going to put you against the wall with the rest of the capitalist scum. We're going to put you in the firing squad. You're going to hang from a rope. And I'm like,
It's very
okay, but
graphic.
what?
Some of the more graphic, violent fantasies
Yeah.
are the ones that definitely scare me the most. And then when they come from a profile where you're looking and there's a rainbow flag in the profile, there's something else. I'm like, wow. And I know that some of it is just like maybe self-hatred or projection, or I don't know what it is, but those were definitely the most scary threats, if you will, that I had. Because I think I can tell when it's coming from the right. Like I can kind of tell what that looks like. This was like, wow, this is coming from in my community. This is coming from in my safe place. This is coming from folks that maybe I would also be looking forward to seeing, or I wouldn't immediately recognize as a threat, that are sending the most violent threats. And I think that speaks to a lot of the frustration that young people have with the world that they've been dealt. And I get it. But it's also, it's why I don't look at my YouTube comments. If you ever looked, my TikTok comments are usually a really happy place, but my YouTube comments are full of like 13-year-old boys who have very violent imaginations. And that is a scary, sometimes that's an even scarier place to be. Yeah.
Yeah, they can really take it to a place.
I know. I
Uh,
would hate to be a kid these days because like bullying in my day was like I got bullied, but it would be like my turn for like a couple days, right? And then it was kind of went away. And then you'd be friends again. But now it's different. And the odd thing about the sort of like attacks that I got back in October, and I'm not talking about all criticism. Some of it was very valid criticism. I'm talking about the like violent stuff. One of the creators who was super violent at me and caused me a lot of trouble, I saw uh and was just projecting things that I never said, just airing grievances about white people and different things that I never said. Um, I saw at an event, and they turned around at this event. We were at a Planned Parenthood event, and they turned around and they were like, "Oh my God, V! Oh my God, I'm gonna come hug you in a second. I can't wait to talk to you." And I was like, you just like near I saw your video, and it wasn't like minced words. And so I had for that sometimes I have security at events, sometimes I don't. For this one I did. Anything abortion I typically do. And so I was like, I need to leave. Like I need to leave. And they were like, okay, we'll just leave right now. But it was the craziest thing that this person who had just dragged me for filth, sent people to my page over things I didn't even say or do. It had gone so far beyond even what the topic was at this event, turns around, is like, oh my God, girl, I love you. And I was like,
it's nuts, right? It's
did you
nuts.
forget that you like absolutely like I saw the video, man? And that was weird to me too. But these are all little things that you as a creator, so you can have these experiences, right? And then you have to remember that people are human. What do I do with that? Okay, now how can I sort of deconstruct what happened with that creator versus the way they were in real life? And how would I handle the stress of this ever happening again? Because I took all that stress on my heart and like I had to have like a little medical intervention because I was having like physical reactions to TikTok, which is not something we should
Right.
hope for. Like, come on, we should be able to separate at some point. But I was having such severe stress reactions, bordering on hospitalization over that. And then this one person who was like a key part of that was at this thing. And I'm like, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real. So many things are done because like there's creators who I feel like us who are kind of like, I didn't think this was going to happen. I'm really happy to be here. I love doing it. I have a lot of fun. I look forward to being on TikTok. I learn a lot. I say a lot. It's been great for my life. I enjoy it so much. And then there are people who really want this to be like their job. And just like any job, they'll step on your neck to get to the next level. And they
Mhm.
don't see it as personal because it's not personal to them, because it's about numbers. It's about clicks. It's about virality. It's about money. It's about whatever the case may be, authority. And that happens in all jobs. I didn't think it happened in TikTok, but it does. And I think that's good for other creators to know. Are you being called in, or are you being used for,
Right.
fodder for like creator beef for clout or whatever the case may be? People will always show their true colors and who they truly are. It can hurt you for a while if you're attacked by somebody that you respected, or you have a falling out with somebody you respected. But anybody who lies on you will always be caught out. And we're seeing it with this particular creator now being called
I
out
had I had a rather
for a
large
lot.
creator from the left come into one of my lives one time, and I was talking about we were talking about trans issues, and I had said some things that had upset the trans community, and I was doing a live and I was talking about it, and this gentleman came into the live, and we only have a few minutes left, so I won't take too much of your time.
Sure.
We've got about 10 minutes left. And he comes into the live and he's talking to me about it, and he's talking about the things that he's done for the veterans community and the things that are bothering the veterans community, and kind of comparing it to the trans community. And we're having a back and forth conversation. He goes, "Let me just bottom line this for you, Tom. Are you a member of the trans community?" I said, "No." He goes, "Then you shouldn't be talking about it." I went, "Well,
Wow.
are you a veteran?" He goes, "No." I go, "So then how come you can talk about veterans?"
Right.
It's like, if you have to stick within your community. Well, my community is unfortunately Trump supporters. I'm a straight white middle American middle-aged man. When I go out looking like this, if it wasn't for my shirts, I get mistaken for Trump supporters, a Trump supporter everywhere I go, especially considering I live in a smaller red town that votes heavily for Trump. I go to the bowling alley with my son, and I get people with FJB shirts coming up going, how about so and so? And I got to sit there and go, wrong fucking guy.
Yeah.
You know, I was raking leaves. What was it? Yeah, I was raking leaves in my front yard the day that Obama got reelected in 12. And a guy who lives, I don't know, 9, 10 houses down, who I had never spoken to a day in my life, he's driving his motorcycle down and he stops because I'm like kind of at the curb and I've got the leaves, and he's like, "How's it going?" I'm like, just doing some leaf clamp, because I talk to all my neighbors.
Sure.
And I got a far right wing Republican behind me, a libertarian across the street from me, extraordinarily religious folks over here, and we all get along. This guy stops and he's talking to me. He's like, "How's it going?" Blah blah blah. And then he goes, "So looks like 4 more years of communism. They elected that N word." And
Oh,
I just looked at him and I went, "Yeah, I'm one of the people that voted for him." And he's
yeah.
like, "You got to be kidding me!" And I'm
You're
like,
like, no,
"Nope."
brother.
No. And listen, if you want to have the conversation, I will be more than happy to have this conversation with you. But you need to know where this is going to go. I'm not on your side, politically speaking. I'm on your side in that we're neighbors. And if you ever had a problem, you want to come down, like the guy who lives behind me, that's very far right wing Republican. I don't know that he's necessarily a Trump guy, but I know he's far right wing Republican. He's got access to my shed. Go get the leaf blower. If you need the leaf rake, go get the leaf rake. Whatever the case may be, we're very friendly with each other, because politics doesn't have to be the be all end all. But as soon as this guy heard that I voted for Obama, sped off and fuck you and blah blah blah. All right, fine, man. I'm not the one that stopped to have the conversation and told somebody that I didn't know how shitty their politics were without even knowing what their politics were. But in the limited time that we have left here, I wanted to ask you a couple of more fun questions.
Sure. Yeah.
2 of which would be, what's with the banana shirt, and how did you come up with the under the desk thing?
Okay, so the banana shirt, when I had top surgery, I had to have like button front shirts, which I didn't really have before. And so we tried to find really fun ones so that it would be like fun recovery. So this is like a shirt that I had from a while ago. And one day the news was especially bad. And I was like, there has to be good stuff. There has to be good stuff. Let me look at science. Let me look at whatever. And I just was like, I'm going to put on this because I wear suits most of the time. I've been kind of like relaxed on the suits lately, but I was wearing suits all the time. And I was like, I want to show people when they see my face, it's going to be something different. And so I'm like, just looking in my closet, I'm like, bananas. So I put on this like stupid banana shirt just to be stupid. And because it was hanging in my closet, there was no intentionality behind it. And then I was like, let's talk about some good stuff that happened. And then people were like, I love this. And so then it became banana shirt good news only.
Right on.
Like all things I do, they just work. I don't know. They just came from like a place of genuineness and then they work. And with Under the Desk News, I was worked in the culinary field for years in special events. And I was at the James Beard Foundation before I did TikTok as their director of impact. And so I was in charge of like teaching chefs how to go to the Hill and like lobby for better food policy and like small business and stuff. And when the pandemic came, I was doing a lot of cooking content, like teaching people how to like make a really cool dinner out of stuff you have in your pantry and apply for the PPP loan. Like, so it was like stuff like that. January 6th, I was on a call with the VA because I was like in charge of like veterans food delivery for like a quick clip as part of a group of people that were doing that. I'm on the call with the VA and I had like CNN on the background and I like see this going on and I was like, oh my God. And at that time I was dressed just from the waist up this is how the suit came to be. I was dressed from the waist up in my little suit because I was on the call with the VA and I don't know, anything government. I always like to try to look extra nice so they listen to you. Otherwise they think you're like a punk kid. And so I like dove under my desk and I was like, Michael Pence, you could be president for 14 days. All you have to do is invoke the 25th Amendment. And I explained the 25th Amendment. But so then my friend Randy, that went super viral because people were like crazed. And then Randy was like, you better get back under the desk and explain what's going on now. I had been a caterer in DC for years. I knew a lot about the Capitol, a lot about the politicians. I'm watching on TV and I'm like, these are areas that you're not allowed to walk in. These are like member only areas, they're called. And I just was seeing people in them. And I'm like, at first, I don't think people realized how bad January 6th was. Because if you're watching on TV, it was kind of like all they had there were like, your daily cameras, your stationaries. So you were kind of like, oh, it looks like a lot of people, but you didn't see everything that was going on until they started releasing the inside footage. And my friend Randy was like, you better get back under the desk and explain it. So for like 3 days in a row, I was under my desk just explaining stuff in a way that wasn't scary. And then I got into doing civics and then it just became Under the Desk News. Other people started saying every night I look forward to Under the Desk News. So that's how the word even came up. It like came from comments. And I didn't realize that I said it's Monday night and here's what happened. It's Tuesday night and here's what happened. A follower made me a ceramic mug that said it's Monday night and here's what happened. And I was like, oh, I guess that's the catchphrase. Every single thing, the fact that they call it themselves the Dust Bunnies, like my fans are the Dust Bunnies, they came up with that. So it's just like, it's a collective thing, but it wasn't intentional. I don't have a journalism background or anything like that. And I just kept doing what felt right. And what's cool about TikTok and about the pandemic time is I think people really got to be their own rainbow. They got to just be their own little weirdo self, and it worked. Because if NBC were to cast Under the Desk News as a show, they would never have picked me, right? If any big media person had come up with this, I wouldn't have been the person, but I am the person. So I think
it's amazing how organic stuff happens.
Yeah, and that's how everything happens. That's how Thursdays happen. That's how shit talking and speculating happened when I used to do late night lives of shit talking and speculating, where I would be like, I actually don't know anything about this, but I want to gossip about it. I think if you're super honest about it, people will let you do it,
Shit talking and speculating, I think, should be the name of my next book. The organic, like that's how the name hip hop came to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that the origins behind the word, the name hip hop, but the Sugar Hill Gang song, Rapper's Delight, right? So that song became very popular in New York, a hip hop, a hippity to hip hop, and people would go into record stores in New York and say, "Hey, do you have that hippity hop song?"
Oh, and there we go. And then it came from.
And so then the term hip hop just organically was born out of that. So, all right, with just a couple of minutes to go here, everybody that I've been interviewing so far, that I've had the honor of interviewing so far, has been a TikTok creator. My next one is not a TikTok creator. He's actually a flight director at NASA.
Oh, wow.
And I'm very excited. He follows me. He was an astronaut that spent 6 months on the International Space Station. And he reached out to me a few weeks or a few months back, and he's like, "Dude, I love your stuff." And I'm like, "Me? You're like really get smart." And he sent me an autographed picture of him saying that I'm the greatest modern day philosopher. We're going down to Houston to see him in May. So he's the first non-TikTok creator I'm going to have. That's going to be next week. But everybody else has been a TikTok creator, and I've ended all of these interviews with the same question: how has TikTok changed your life?
TikTok has given me the validation and helped me find a community that I really struggled previously to find. I was always like the best guy for someone else's company, or really like a vigilante justice person at organizations I worked at. And that doesn't always work out for you. And since being able to be at TikTok and have my own channel and build my own confidence and really change the way that news and information is delivered, I feel more secure in myself. I feel like my mission on this planet is being realized. And because I had such bad experiences before TikTok, I'm leaving that door as open as I possibly can for as many of us to run through as we can, because we really have changed the way that media exists on TikTok. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm just grateful for the community that we have and that this exists.
And you got Barack Obama to sit
and
under
I
the
got
desk.
Barack Obama under a desk. I'm able to provide for my family in a way that I might not have otherwise been able to. But I think overall, I've found a sense of like settled and self-confidence through TikTok that I really struggled to find prior to this, of being like, no, you are smart. No, you are likable. No, you are a good leader. No, you should be talking about these things. TikTok's been incredibly validating and also really centering and calming for me as a person. And I'm really grateful for the people that I've met on it. Cause like, I would have never met you in Chicago. I would have never met like JD out in Seattle now, or like Pat in New York, or any of the people that I
talking
really
about JD
consider
Khan?
valuable. Yeah. I love him. Them.
JD Khan, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the best. But like,
are you going to be in Chicago for the DNC?
Maybe we'll see. I don't know. I got to see if their check clears, you know?
Well, if you are, let me know. We'll go have
Yeah,
some lunch
absolutely.
or something. We'll share. Listen,
but I just TikTok has changed my life financially, but it has really changed my like center of gravity when it comes to who I am as a person, and it's made me a more calm, steady person, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, I absolutely love what you do.
Thank
and
you.
I think of you as a trusted news source. And so when I'm researching something, my wife will attest to this. I will go, let me see what V had to say about it, because if somebody will send me, hey, did you hear about something insane? No, I didn't. But let me go see if V had something to say about it. Not that they're going to give me their opinion about it, but they're going to give me the bullet points. They're going to let me know that it actually did happen, that there is something going on, and then that's going to be the springboard for me to be able to go research something. So, from my standpoint, please don't ever stop doing what you do.
I won't. That's the goal. That's what I hope. I hope I get you curious enough and give you enough keywords to Google that you can go and get deeper on the stuff that you care about. Me, I got to get deeper on the Texas border thing today, because I can't even figure out if it's like if it's an Abbott trick or if it's real, or we'll see.
It's a nightmare down there, but listen, I'll be watching to see what you have to say about it. Thank you very much for doing this. I can't thank you enough.
It was great being here. Thanks so much. I'll see you soon.
Love your stuff. Bye-bye.
Bye.